Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are, and welcome. My name is Casey Murphy, and I am ACT's Director of Programs and Events. I want to thank you for joining us today for ACT's final webinar of the year entitled Returning to the Office, New Mobility Strategies, sponsored by our friends at WeDriveU. And make sure that you stay on throughout the entire webinar today, all the way through the Q&A, as WeDriveU is giving away a couple gift cards to a few lucky people. So definitely stay tuned all the way to the end. Before we hear from our presenters this afternoon, I wanted to quickly take care of a few housekeeping items. First, all attendees are on mute during this webinar. If you have a question or have a problem hearing us, please type it in the chat box located in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, when we will do our best to answer your questions as the webinar gets going. Second, we'll be hosting a Q&A at the end of the webinar, but please feel free to type in your questions as we go. Please note who the question is for, or please identify who the question is for when typing it in. Finally, this session is being recorded, and we will have the recording up on the ACT website within 24 hours after the presentation ends. Now I'd like to go ahead and pass things over to David Strauss, ACT's Executive Director, to give an update on what ACT currently has going on. David?
Excellent. Thank you, Casey. And I just discovered, I think we actually need some music to transition this from now on. Work plan item for next year. Good afternoon. I want to thank all of you for joining us today for our final webinar of 2021. I believe that this was our 15th or 16th webinar this year, providing a great opportunity for people to come together and learn. I think we averaged just over around 150 participants on each call. I know we've got over 200 that were registered for today. As the premier association for TDM professionals, ACT's goal is to build a strong community of individuals and organizations working to advance and implement TDM at the work sites and within their communities. Webinars like today's are an important benefit to you as a member of ACT, providing you with valuable information and latest trends and important knowledge to make you more impactful in the work that you do. Today's webinar, sponsored by WeDriveU, brings forward a topic that is always at the core of what we do, this important role that shuttles and return to work are playing. We're going to explore hybrid work models and evolving protocols, shared shuttles and on-demand services, mobile technologies for an exceptional passenger experience, and accelerating sustainability with EVs, a topic that those of you who were able to join us at our international conference in Disney this summer were able to see firsthand at our first ever EV showcase, also sponsored by WeDriveU. To the individuals joining us today that are not yet ACT members, and there are quite a few of you, I welcome you and invite you to become a member of our community. I guarantee you that ACT membership will be a valued investment in your professional growth in 2022. After today's event, you will receive a note from Elizabeth Denton, our Membership Experience Manager, offering an opportunity to connect and learn more about the association. And I hope that you take her up on that offer and look forward to meeting you as a member at a future event. I want to take a moment to just update everyone on some of the news from ACT. ACT's TDM Forum, our final event of the year, is taking place on Tuesday, December 14th, so just a few days from now. Registration is still open for this half-day virtual event. We have close to 300 people already registered, so it promises to be a great afternoon that will feature a fabulous keynote address from Dr. Regan Patterson. She's with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, who will be speaking on the topic of creating equity in public transit. There'll be 6 breakout sessions on a range of topics that include how to benefit from the infrastructure bill, exploring standards for TDM accreditation, regional TDM planning, developing return to work, commuter plans, and other topics. We'll also have a chance to recognize our 2021 class of 40 under 40 honorees. It promises to be an information-packed day, but don't worry, there's plenty of breaks built into the schedule, so you can always run to get something to eat or use the restroom. I encourage you to register. Registration is just $45 for members, and we're offering group discounts for sending 5, 10, or more people to the event. Talking about conferences, ACT's call for sessions for next year's international conference in Chicago comes to a close on December 22nd. I encourage all of you to think about your programs, organizational operations, and coordinate with a group of colleagues and other individuals to pull together a topic for a session that you think will add value to the program. So that deadline is December 22nd. There's a tremendous amount of work that's taking place throughout the industry. I know there's a lot to share and hope that people take advantage of this opportunity. Shortly after the new year, ACT will also be opening registration for our Future of Commuting Summit that will be held in person in Pittsburgh, April 26th to 27th. This was an event that's been postponed twice now, so we're hoping the third time is the charm. The event will feature a unique program that aims to bring all attendees into the action with facilitated small discussion groups, interactive panel sessions, and tours. As I said, originally it was planned in 2021 and 2020, but we are moving forward full steam ahead with this event in 2022. Lastly, I invite you all to join us tomorrow afternoon for an end-of-year virtual social, an opportunity to gather with your friends and colleagues from across the world. The social will feature some fun and games and activities with prizes, and you can register for that on our website as well. Now it's on to today's webinar, Returning to the Office, New Mobility Strategies, sponsored by WeDriveU. To kick us off, it's my pleasure to introduce Shawn Kelly. Shawn is the Managing Director for Customer Success. Shawn optimizes the customer experience and creates value throughout the journey, from onboarding and implementation to account growth and retention. Shawn has worked for WeDriveU since September 2015, managing commuter shuttle programs in Boston, Austin, and Chicago. He previously led mobility services for Athena Health in Boston. Shawn, the platform is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. So we have lots of great speakers today that I'm excited to introduce. First, we have Marc Rivers, Transportation Program Analyst for Cbre in Beaverton, Oregon. Courtney Menjivar, Principal at Wells & Associates. And Jeff Bennett, Senior Shuttle Services Manager at the 128 Business Council in Waltham, Massachusetts. Next slide, please. All right, so I can't personally believe that it's been 640 days, we actually counted, since our first set of shuttle programs were halted in March of 2020 due to COVID-19 concerns at the beginning of the pandemic. And looking at our landscape, we've had partners operating the whole time. We've had many red light, green light moments based on various environmental factors, and partners who've remained shut down throughout. So it's crazy to think about the focus of various phases of planning all of us have gone through, from expecting to go back to normal in a matter of weeks in early 2020 to now being here 18 months later with a completely different perspective. And really, I think we're all looking at it as a massive opportunity to start fresh in a way with more dynamic programs. So it's less about getting employees from point A to point B, but creating a flexible environment with choice and convenient options that are attractive. Something we've always talked about, but again, just that fresh start and massive opportunity. So who would have really thought that we'd be thinking about how do we get people out of their sweatpants and back to the office, or how do we get people comfortable leaving their pets who probably have separation anxiety now? This isn't just about commuting. It's about shifting people's mindsets and getting people back to the office, with the commute being such a focal point. So I've certainly enjoyed the spotlight on commuter transportation right now, and I'm sure many of you professionals on the call are enjoying the same spotlight. So when I reflect on the last 18 months, some highlights that come to mind. Demand responsive transit. So we're seeing a lot of interest in these types of programs that replace or augment lower utilized routes or geographies that were historically serviced by fixed route lines. Electric fleets. So a lot of organizations are taking the time to rethink their EV strategy and or looking at completely replacing their diesel fleets or phasing them in as part of their return. And just, again, fresh starts. So for some organizations up to 25, 30, we've even heard higher of their staff, percentages of their staff are completely new. So just having the ability to influence a drastically larger population with commuter choices at one time is amazing. So To wrap up my thoughts, we've been fortunate to have maintained some really strong partnerships throughout the pandemic. So thank you to our clients and partners who've collaborated with us to safely transport employees, which prove that sustainable transport has not gone away during that pandemic. So yeah, next slide. And our first speaker, so Marc Rivers, Transportation Program Analyst for Cbre based in Beaverton. So Marc manages employee transportation for one of his clients' large corporate campuses in Beaverton, Oregon. Programs include parking, carpool, final mile shuttle, and micromobility programs. And Marc is a recent ACT 40 under 40 winner. So Marc, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shawn. Yeah, as Shawn said, my name is Marc Rivers. So happy to be here. And if you could go to the next slide. Wonderful. So the campus that we manage has an estimated 18,000 individuals that work here, or at least will work here when we all get back to the campus. We are slated for a return next month, so the clock is ticking and there is much to be done, as I'm sure many of us are in the same boat. COVID presented us with a really great opportunity to say, like, okay, what have we done and what do we want to do? Like, let's not just come back with what we did before. Let's reimagine everything we can. And so as we've done that, we've been able to build a pretty great deck essentially for how we can support our employees for their return to and from the campus, as well as their trips around the campus. So some of those things include a final mile fixed route shuttle line that attaches to some of our nearby public transit stops. Also a demand responsive taxi service, which is essentially like a private corporate Uber or Lyft. And then we have a lot of smart parking technology that helps our employees who choose to drive get a little bit, get in and out faster, spend less time looking for parking, et cetera, and more time being productive, more time collaborating, et cetera. And then we also have a lot of programs centered around carpooling, low emissions vehicles, and electric vehicle charging, where we have specific locations set up, a lot of EV chargers, things like that. Great ways for people to reduce their carbon impact if they are choosing to drive. But one of our favorite things to talk about is our micromobility, because we just recently launched the third iteration of our corporate bike share program. And this time we were fortunate enough to upgrade to electric assist pedal bikes, and they are a huge success so far. So it's a really awesome place to get around, and there's no better way to do it than on two wheels. If we could go to the next slide. Wonderful. So as we're looking at returning to the office, I was asked to speak to flexibility and the role that it's played in our planning. So the first thing we did is we sat down and kind of said, like, okay, let's forget everything we know and let's just start with a blank slate. Let's set some goals. And the first goal we came up with was we want to empower active transportation. In the past, there's been a lot of we'll get you there, but what we want to do when we come back is to say, we'll help you get yourself there. From that, we've really leaned heavily into micromobility, things like bikes. We're currently piloting scooters, things like that. We've also made a lot of improvements to our campus for just walking, running, scooting, skating, etc., and making it a lot easier to get around if you're on foot or on wheels. And we've done so in a way that makes those paths more accessible to more people with varying body types as well. We have also looked at, when it comes to our shuttles and taxi programs, we know that those are critical. We know that they are beloved programs. They're very successful. But one thing that we really wanted to do as we come back in coordination with that goal to emphasize active transportation is, with the help of WeDriveU, we're no longer necessarily picking someone up and taking them from point A to point B if they have a meeting. We're expanding the threshold of what we consider an approved ride pairing, essentially, to say if you're going a long distance, maybe to one of our satellite campuses, yes, we will get you with our shuttles and taxis. We've got you, no problem. But if you're just going a couple minutes across campus, we want you to move yourself. It's good for your activity, it's good for health, it's good for the environment. And so we've really leaned into let's expand the threshold of what is available. And then also, as much as we're tired of it after 2 years, Zoom is still very much a real thing and will continue to be. And I see it as a nice, a nice arrow in our quiver in the world of TDM, where we can say, can you have your meeting as a Zoom instead of getting in a car and driving across campus to go meet with someone for 30 minutes and then coming back again? And so all of it really aims toward reducing the number of vehicles moving around and increasing productivity. Our return to office plan at our campus, we are going forward with a 3-2 model. And by that, I mean our employees are expected to be at work Tuesday through Thursday, on site, collaborating, face-to-face meetings, and then Mondays and Fridays, we work remote. So it's going to be interesting, and we've kind of got our betting pool going on to see what's going to be successful, how long things will last, and all of that. But like everybody else, we're figuring it out as we go along, and we're making the best plans we can with what we know. So we know that the positives of that is greater collaboration. And when you can work face-to-face with someone, you can really get through things a lot faster and really brainstorm some amazing ideas. So we're very excited about that. But we also know that it means 3 days a week, all of our facilities will be stretched to capacity. That means 3 days a week, we will have a lot of traffic congestion, parking issues, the shuttles will be full, and there's just a lot of how do we work with that? What do we expect? What do we not? And so fortunate for us, we've got a great partnership with WeDriveU, who has really helped us to build in flexibility to some of these programs, especially the shuttles and taxis, where we have vehicles on reserve. So if we are seeing a lot of people riding these vehicles and the demand is really high, we can very quickly get more resources out in the field and support that. On the other hand, we also know that we can scale back if they're not being used because maybe people don't trust shared mobility quite yet. So we've got a lot of flexibility to go up and down with these. And I have a strong suspicion that we will be using those flexibilities as we come back to work and learn how things actually play out. So it's great to be prepared. So as we look to return, one of the great opportunities we get to do is help employees build new habits. Experts say it takes something like 3 weeks to build a habit, right? And so we know if somebody decides on day one that they're going to drive, chances are they'll probably get back in their car day 2 and day 3. And within 3 weeks, good luck getting them to change. It's going to be really hard. But we know if we can, on day 1, or at least in week 1, right, get them to take public transit, get them to take one of our shuttles, get them to cycle to work. If we can make that a good experience, get them to try it, then they're likely to try it again. And as it builds, within 3 weeks or so, good luck getting them back in a car, right? And that's really what we want to do. So as we've looked to this, we've really had a lot of communication with our employees. And this has helped us to build our programs in ways that we feel confident they will be received well from the employees, but it also helps build trust in shared mobility because, after 2 years of everybody saying, stay away from me, I don't want you to get me sick, it can be hard for some people to say, like, I'm going to get on the public transit light rail today and be next to a bunch of random people that I don't know. So what we're doing is talking a lot and talking frequently with our employees, saying, this is our plan, right? We're being very open and honest about our health and safety practices, telling them of the things that we can control, like our shuttles, our taxis, our bikes. This is how frequently they're cleaned. This is the cleaning process. This is what you can expect from the drivers. This is what is expected of employees and passengers. We're also sharing the seat availability through our mobile app. So an employee can look at the vehicle that's approaching and say, there's X amount of seats available on this vehicle. Maybe I'm not comfortable with a vehicle that's full, or that is as full as this one is. I'll wait for the next one. So it's really just about helping people to understand everything that's going on. The more they can know, the more they're likely to trust it and use the service. And we're also being very careful to not hide what we don't have or not what we don't know. You know, it's okay to say, I don't know. We're figuring that out still, because it's a very new situation for everybody. But we know that nothing breaks trust more than promising something and not following through with it. So it's always better to say, I don't know, but let me find out, than to promise something and then not be able to provide it. And then lastly, we're asking for a lot of input. You know, we can build all the programs we want, but if it's not built around what our employees want to use, then what good is it? So we really value the input from our employees. We ask them for their preferences, their concerns, et cetera, and we use all of that to craft all of the programs that we will be providing. So as we look to a return to work, it's a very exciting moment, I think, for all of us. Very much mixed, exciting and terror, but I really think that this is the moment that TDM was made for, right? The world kind of ground to a halt for almost 2 years, and now we are the lucky ones who get to help people physically come back and get the world spinning again. And it's really awesome because TDM has so many opportunities and there's so many cool things that we can do. So again, it comes down to engaging the employees before they return. And I really think that if you haven't engaged with your employees yet, you're probably too late, but there's no time like the present. We've done a lot of things like offer virtual bike programming classes where we did a whole series starting from intro to bicycles to like, this is a wheel, this is a seat, this is how you choose the right size, all the way up to here's how you fix a flat tire, perform basic maintenance, ride in inclement weather. And they were huge successes. Every time we offered the next one, there were more and more people. It was fantastic. We've also done a lot of what we're calling digital road shows, where we're kind of like hosting office hours and saying, come talk to the commute and transportation team and ask whatever questions you have. And hey, while you're here, let us tell you about our cool new Shuttle app that we're launching. And we've also made a lot of videos, tried to make them really fun, kind of cheeky, and they've been great. They've been very well received. So we feel like next month when people come back, while we are starting from new, we're not introducing it to them for the first time on day one. They're already aware of a lot of this stuff. Lastly, tips for bringing commuters back. Again, it comes down to engaging early and often, as well as inviting them into the discussion. You don't dictate to them what to do, give them options. And then, again, just don't ignore what's happened over the last 2 years. These are unprecedented times, and I know there's a lot of eagerness to say, get back to normal. But in doing so, we risk losing a lot of really great learnings that have come from COVID and how it affects TDM. Let's remember all of this. Let's use it. Let's build upon it and really make a great return for our employees. And so with that, Shawn, I'm going to turn it back to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Marc. I think we're all excited to see the kind of culmination of the return to work. We know how much effort has gone into it, and probably more excitement than terror, like you were saying, more excitement. Great. So our next speaker is Courtney Menjivar. So Courtney is a principal at Wells and Associates. Courtney helps businesses, developers, and communities navigate the increasingly complex challenges of transportation, parking, and tenant satisfaction with a focus on accessibility and connectivity. Courtney has 20 years of experience in research, planning, analysis, and community outreach in Australia, Canada, and the United States. Courtney helps communities modernize their approach to transportation and guides businesses through regulatory frameworks that are changing the nature of how the commercial real estate sector manages transportation. Courtney, passing it to you.
Thank you, Shawn, for the introduction. And I know that sounds like there's maybe some random pictures thrown in there. But I'll just share some context. Obviously, we all have our bio, so I think it's nice to include a picture of what we look like in real life. I always think of the IRL abbreviation. Another picture is my favorite place, North Carolina, Lake Gaston. And we just recently were one of those millions of households that brought in a new pet, and that's Charlie. And those that remember Ugly Betty TV show, that's the Ugly Betty wig that he got his hands on. So thank you again for the introduction. Can we go on to the next slide? Thank you. So I wanted to maybe take us up 30,000 feet. So strap in and let's maybe step up a notch and talk a little bit as we navigate these unprecedented times and look to 2022 to support employers and our office partners. It will be important that we take a moment to understand the new landscape of the office real estate. And we certainly saw that in 2021, and I know we're not completely done with 2021, but we're coming up on the end. It was all about data. Although I don't have numbers in front of me right now, I can guess with all the millions of surveys across the globe, transportation related or otherwise, it has been an unprecedented year of administering and completing data collection initiatives, and a lot of information to provide us with some great insights moving forward to help guide us in 2022. Now, one of the emerging trends found in all of the data collected from employees, employers, property managers, and building owners is that work from home has become the new and top of mind competitor. And this insight has dramatically shifted the playing field for both the employers and the office real estate sector. Next slide, please. So our new reality is focused on the hybrid workforce, balancing collaboration and connectedness with safety and wellness. And thus commute patterns are shifting and transportation choices that made sense once may no longer make sense. Next slide, please. So welcome to the era of the multimodal mindset, where office real estate and employers must focus on offering a multitude of options, including on-demand services. Next slide, please. To entice workers back to the office and maintain leases, employers and office managers are focusing their efforts on the tenant or worker experience. So a major component of the tenant and worker experience is transportation. So what is the transportation tenant experience? On the slide here, I'm going to walk us through kind of the diagram. The tenant transportation experience is found at the intersection of prop tech, parking management, TDM, and real-time communications. So jumping into what is prop tech, and perhaps this is a new term or phrase, or it's one we actually are familiar with and it's just fancied and dressed up. But it's the use of technology to help people research, buy and sell and manage a real estate asset. So prop tech solutions work to create a better experience for the buildings and the tenants and those that access it. But what this also means is that it's not just for those who manage the building and real estate, but people who lease and work inside the buildings. So for example, for an office employee, having an app for their building is becoming more of a necessity these days and allows them to conduct a very broad array of functions. Anything from being a mobile key card or to ordering food, to visitor registration, getting a conference room. So instead of needing several different apps to make life more efficient at the workplace, the goal is to integrate everything into one central building app on an employee's smartphone. So you often consider this more like a remote control for the building. We move towards the parking management circle here. That is really about managing the supply of parking and ensure it matches the demand for it. And two of the most effective ways to manage demand for parking is through parking reservations and parking pricing. And as we make our way to TDM, I know for many of us, this is pretty clear, and we understand this and do this all day and every day. And that is managing transportation demand is all about the strategies to change the travel behavior to ensure a specific transportation network is not overloaded or congested. So changing behavior requires proactive and direct communications with individuals and employees. And so we're seeing that personalized commute plans and digital access guides are two highly effective TDM tools when combined with parking management. And last but not least, we have real-time communication. So one of the largest barriers to making change in commuting habits is information about available transportation choices. And as the mobility landscape grows and changes, it has become more important than ever to have real-time information about all the commute options available to push people to other modes of transportation. So to deliver a positive tenant transportation experience, both an employer and an office building will have to respond to employees' need for choices and flexibility. That means people may drive some days and use non-auto forms of transportation other days. So on the next slide, I'd like to share with you somewhat of a real life example of a commercial real estate firm that's focused on cultivating a positive tenant transportation experience through a building app. So I took some screenshots to share with you today. The image on the far left is what's considered kind of the home screen of the transportation section within a building app for a particular office building. And you can see here we have 4 different and unique add-ons or amenities offered through the app. One is a personalized commute plan. Then we have real-time transportation information, a commute guide, and parking reservation. And so I took some screenshots of what the personalized commute plan might look like, as well as in the real-time transportation information. And we can work through, briefly, I'll talk about the commute guide and the parking reservation. So to those that may need some additional support or to better understand their new commute or they're relaunching a commute, or they're traveling different times during the day, the building app provides an opportunity for someone to put in their information and get real-time commute plan right in the palm of their hands. And this is in the middle image is this example of what that might look like. So here you'll see, it tells you how long it takes to get to your workplace, the directions, you click on the map, you get some more additional directions, and below it, which we don't see today, but more than happy to share in another forum, is some information on your other modes of transportation. So it gives you a best fit, and then it tells you, well, that this is your best fit, but there are other options, and really focusing, as Marc was mentioning, about active transportation and getting people, thinking of wellness and activity as we come out of the pandemic or 2021. After the personalized commute plan, we have real-time information. Those are people that supports a personalized trip plan with real-time information. And as you scroll all the way up, all the modes, as we mentioned, are always changing. And so this is an opportunity to always deliver current and accurate information in real time. Also, we have a commute guide, which is more of a static. So it inventories and lists all the transportation information, not only surrounding the building that may be offered from local jurisdictional information, but also information that's building specific, like a private shuttle service or a bike parking program or a carpool parking program. And so that information is included in a static inventory of information available on transportation options. And last but not least, you have the opportunity to reserve parking both hourly and monthly, and allows you to do that ahead of time before coming into the office. And should the parking lot be full, or you're just looking at your different information, we're able, because of this is using technology and we can connect to different information, we're also able to push people to the personalized commute plan if the parking opportunity doesn't provide the options that you're looking for. So this kind of concludes the end of my presentation. I wanted to share a little bit about how technology can really play a role in supporting the return to work and really bring information to the palm of your hand. We know that the days of experiencing a building or going to work is no longer 5 feet, from the curb when you hop off a bus or get out of your car. It's really the minute that you probably wake up. I'd like to say before then it was the minute that your foot hit outside your door. But nowadays, it's when you wake up, when you make those decisions at home or on the go, or maybe you're teleworking or remote working, from Hawaii, lucky for you. But you're able to get this information and make those decisions. And I think that's a really important part as we navigate 2022. And thank you for your time. Shawn, back to you.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, rider employee engagement or experience is extremely important, probably one that resonates across all sectors for everyone on this call. So that's really important. And on to our next speaker. So Jeff Bennett, Senior Shuttle Services Manager for the 128 Business Council, the TMA for Boston's West Suburbs. I've actually had the pleasure of working with Jeff and his team for the last 6 years or so, and they run a truly top-notch TMA here in the Boston area. So Jeff oversees day-to-day transit operations and service planning for shuttles, serving 50 plus businesses in 6 municipalities. So 20 years experience managing urban and suburban shuttles and local transit in Eastern Massachusetts, all with TMAs. Also a past Act 40 Under 40 winner. I'm sure you're seeing the trend here. So Jeff, you can take it away.
All right, thanks, Shawn. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So a little bit about us, 128 Business Council. We're the oldest TMA in Massachusetts. Got started in the late 1980s, addressing the congestion problems and job access problems along that Western Route 128 corridor. The area, if you're not familiar with it, it's far back as the 80s became known as Massachusetts Silicon Valley. It's been a tech incubator and hotspot for a long time, and it's now grown into a pharmaceutical and biotech area in recent years. So our first shuttle route launched actually in 1989. That service is still running today. It's grown considerably since then, but these are certainly not brand new services. We're really working on developing and improving a mature system. So before the pandemic, we were running 13 shuttle routes, about 18 vehicles every day, 200,000 plus riders annually. And as Shawn mentioned, member organizations has gotten a little hard to measure. We're in that around that 40 to 50 range. There's been a lot of change in the last couple of years, obviously. But in terms of, good mix of we represent a mix of direct employers, members of the organization, as well as property managers. So we're in direct or indirect contact working with well over 100 different companies in our 6 municipalities. One thing that is very unique about us is we are nearly 100% privately funded. TMAs come in a lot of different varieties around the country and around the world. In Massachusetts, we derive nearly all of our funding directly from the private sector. So in our case, that's coming directly from the businesses that we are providing TDM and shuttle services to. And then in 2018, we had undertaken a complete, thorough top to bottom rebranding and relaunch of our shuttle services. We took several disparate services and combined them into one common brand known as the Grid. So we were still very much in the process of building on that exhaustive process that started back in 2018 when the pandemic hit. So we can go to the next slide. So like everyone else, we spent most of 2020 doing the unthinkable. We did suspend our operation for a little over 8 weeks during the height of the stay-at-home orders. Even with our workforce and the members that we serve, obviously the vast majority of people were not commuting for that period. And so it made sense to suspend operation for the time being. But then we really use that to reinvent how we manage the shuttle service and how to operate it in a completely new environment. So we set about a very phased and strategically gradual process of reopening the service starting in June 2020. During that time, we brought in the experts. We're TDM and transit people. We're not epidemiologists. So we found the help that we needed to tell us what we needed to do to make our shuttles as safe as they could possibly be. Given that a huge chunk of our ridership comes from the pharmaceutical, biotech, life science sector, they were already being prepared in their workplaces to be in an environment that was taking every possible safety measure to address the pandemic. And we needed to make sure that that continued in their experience on the shuttle, or they wouldn't be comfortable using it. We did a lot of work at, reevaluating how people would board and exit the shuttle, and even leaned on our shuttle contractor, to come up with some pretty creative solutions, including custom built partitions that they used that eight-week shutdown to home build their own driver partitions, because you just couldn't find them on the marketplace in that short period of time. So if we can go to the next slide, we suddenly found ourselves doing an incredible number of things we just never thought we would do. We never thought we would be so closely involved in the detailed processes and manner in which our riders board and exit shuttles. We came up with new seating plans. We came up with new procedures for how they got on and off the bus in order to promote that safe physical distancing. And this is all being done, of course, in the mindset of the first few months of the pandemic, as we're still, as a globe, learning a lot about what safety means. We threw out our service manual, our service operations plan, and went to essentially a flexible on-demand pickup model. And this was done through a manual reservation system. We weren't really able to lean on the on-demand services that are out there in shuttle and transit technology, because we're focused on managing capacity and keeping the shuttles, making the best use of that shuttle capacity so that folks would feel safe. And what that meant was essentially our team was evaluating who was riding and where folks were riding every day, every trip, and trying to reallocate the buses and those seats so that we kept the numbers on the buses down, and we were able to make the best use of those resources. And so it meant coming up essentially with a different operating plan for the service every single commute for about 6 to 8 months. So if you want to go to the next slide. As I mentioned, this is a huge life science, pharmaceutical, biotech area. Majority of the commuters that we serve are those that are coming out of the city, from Boston, Cambridge, Somerville. They need transit access of some form. There's very little public transit going to the offices and the suburban research campuses that we serve. And some of the interesting things that we found over the course of the last year and a half is that while at its height, our ridership was down over 90%. So last summer we were carrying less than 10% of what we normally do. But we had a steady core of riders who never stopped commuting. A lot of our folks are become fond of saying they can't work from home. They're working in a lab. They're actively discouraged from taking their work home with them for a host of very good reasons. And they needed that safe access to the workplace. We were concerned, kind of like as Marc talked about the shortened work week, would we see everyone packing the shuttles on 1 or 2 days a week, and not as much utilization other times? Actually, we found that we're surprised by how much commuting there is on Monday, Friday, how many of our riders, as we got to know them very personally during a lot of this hands-on process, how many were still commuting 5 days a week because they're doing the kind of jobs where they have to be there. So that's why we just felt it was absolutely critical to provide that shuttle experience that feels every bit as safe as what they're experiencing in their office. We've returned the core of our shuttle system to pre-pandemic or near pre-pandemic service levels by late spring of this year. The ridership is still far below. We're still in that 35 to 50% of the before times ridership, but we felt that it was critically important to get service back up and running in a way that the folks would see something that they experienced and they felt before the pandemic. We want that quality of service to be there for them when they come back to the office. So if you want to go ahead and the next slide. One of the key aspects of that, and this is really one of the last things that in that 2018 relaunch and rebranding, there's one big aspect we didn't finish, and that was fares and ticketing. We are a fully open to the public service, which means that being a private organization, we have a two-tiered fare structure. Folks that are affiliated with our members pay a lower fare. The general public is still welcome to ride, but they travel at a higher fare. So it makes for a very complex fare system. And we'd spent the last couple of years evaluating several different vendors and trying to find a good solution that would allow us to finally switch from a very old-fashioned paper and cash ticketing system into the modern era. And all that kind of went out the window at the beginning of the pandemic because we just simply had to suspend fares. It was the right thing to do when we resumed operation last year. We needed to minimize the contact, make things as safe as possible. So we actually were able to leverage the fact that we were running for such a long period in this reduced service and reduced ridership environment to stay fare free while we undertook this rapid rollout of the trip shot mobile ticketing system. And we really compressed what would probably have been a 10 to 12 month onboarding process into about 4 months. And we were able to take advantage of the fact that we had a smaller ridership, and both our riders and our members had gotten pretty well used to hearing about changes on a regular basis. You know, there's one thing that's definitely been the case in the last few years, or last couple of years. The world looks completely different every couple months. So we were able to leverage that and get that support from our members and our riders to very quickly implement that. So that's been a huge improvement. So in summary, you know, for us, it's all about getting as much of the quality experience of their transportation back as quickly as possible. And so by, you know, returning to the normal fare collection, but doing it in a way that provides a much better experience for our riders has really been helpful. And so that's just the last component of being able to make sure that the service is there and it's ready to go for when folks come back to the office. And so with that, thank you. And I'll turn it back to Casey as we move into the Q&A.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate it. And to all of our panelists today, please make sure you stay on the line. I know we're going to get through a few Q&A questions here and then announce the winner of our prizes shortly thereafter. While I have you, Jeff, I'm going to start with you real quickly as folks are answering my quick poll here, if you don't mind taking a minute. Your Commute program, I know, is based on sharing among different organizations. How has that been affected by the pandemic?
I would say in a lot of ways, it actually has insulated us slightly from certain aspects in the sense that we work with so many businesses. It's allowed us to really keep the program going. You know, I think as we've all experienced, it was really scary. It was really scary for a while as we didn't know what the future commuting environment was going to look like. But we've been lucky. We've had a lot of turnover. We've had far more turnover in our membership in the last 18 months than we have, you know, in the 5.5 years that I've been with the Business Council. But despite that, there's been enough continued support that we've been able to maintain, you know, as much of our operation as possible. I think it's also it's that common, and we're lucky. It's that combination of the life sciences employers and the property managers. And a lot of our largest members are property managers, and many have made a real commitment to make sure that the transportation and TDM infrastructure in our region is maintained because they know it will take, you know, this is 30 plus years we've been building this organization and these services, and we've got to keep them in place in order to be ready for the return.
Okay, thank you for that. Marc, I know your campus is focused on more than just how people get to and from work, but can you tell us a little bit about your park once philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. So while as much as we all want to get people out of cars, we all also have to recognize that people will still drive. And in recognizing that, our goal is if we can't get you out of your car, we want to make sure you don't use your car in the middle of the day, because our campus is sizable, and sometimes individuals think, okay, I should probably just drive to the other side of the campus for my meeting or whatever it is. And so we have this Park Once philosophy that says, if you drive, come on in, we got a place for you to park your car, but we want to make sure that our programs are robust enough that you don't need to rely on your own vehicle to move around throughout your day, that we've got you, whether it be on bike, shuttle, taxi, walking, or whatever else. So that's really one of our focuses. Don't touch the car till you leave.
Awesome. Thank you. I know real quickly too, there was a question asked, you mentioned it in your conversation for companies who are kind of late to engage their employees on the return to work. What would you say is the single most useful thing employers can do to help guide their commuting employees into non-SOV options?
Yeah. So, Ken, I saw your question post earlier, and I apologize. I don't know that I can just say one single thing, but I've come up with three, and I'll keep them brief. One is just educate, set the expectations. Even a very mediocre plan can go over okay if the expectations are understood. And so engage with your employees in whatever way that you can. Every organization has their own ways of doing that. Some groups have internal websites, kind of like a Facebook, where you can do that very interactively. Others prefer an email. Everybody's a little different. Use what you have to engage and set those expectations. And then number two would be keep it simple. Just keep in mind, as people are returning to work, the commute is just one part of that for them. It's everything to us, and we're the lucky few who are weird enough to geek out over this stuff. But the majority of people don't geek out over commutes, and it's just something that they do, but they want to think as little about it as possible. They want it to be intuitive. So keep your messaging simple, help them to understand very quickly, very easily. And three, make it fun if you can. Examples of things we've done is, for instance, like we made those really fun videos. They're awesome. I wish I could have shown them here. But we've done prize drawings. We have that kind of internal Facebook-ish kind of thing where we can make regular posts and just be like, hey, here's a quick question. Anybody know the answer? And first person to answer it correctly, we've got a prize for you. So really just, set the expectations, keep it simple, make it fun.
Awesome. Thank you. This next one for you, Courtney. Are you aware of any mixed-use buildings using an app like what you showed that takes into account residential trips?
Yes, we're currently working with a few residential properties to essentially replicate what I showed you for residents, and to basically integrate into the residential apps. So there's many residential apps that we know how to receive packages and other information for those, especially for those that have lived in multifamily homes and know that these apps exist. And we're looking to expand that app to include mobility add-ons and transportation features. So the short answer is yes. And I'd be more than happy to talk offline about it.
Okay, awesome.
We have time constraints, so.
Try to get through this next question here. Might be geared more towards Marc, but open it up to all the panelists here a little bit. It's been clear from the outset of the pandemic that qualified pre-tax benefits are currently structured are not able to meet the needs of commuters today. How are your companies incentivizing hybrid commuting to make ride sharing and other options more attractive?
Since you used my name, I'll go first, and I'll be very quick because admittedly, this is something that I don't know that I have a great answer
That's
to.
fine.
It's a challenge. But again, it kind of goes back to the point that I made with the last question of wherever possible, we're just trying to make it fun. We're doing a cash cab situation to try to get people in and be like, you'll actually win money from us. So again, it's just, I think that's the best we've been able to come up with so far, but I would love to know what anybody else has.
Jeff or Courtney?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a good answer other than I think it's, it's going to present a lot of new challenges. I think for us, it's very similar to the concerns that and sort of grappling with, how do we quickly change what we offer customers that a lot of transit authorities are going through. I mean, the era of, and this may be my Boston focus bias, but a monthly pass for mass transit doesn't really make sense for a lot of commuters now. And so, how do we extend that into, flexible options so that people can do lots of things with their transportation spending. It's one that affects our companies because, for commuters that are using our shuttles, they're often paying transit fares to two different operators just to go on a short commute, plus the cost of whatever else they do on days that they're doing something else. So bringing that, unifying that would be really beneficial.
Okay.
I can jump right in just for maybe add a few things. I think when we're speaking about hybrid, and I mentioned this, I think in my discussion earlier, is that it's about choices. And people will be, the 9 to 5 commute is no longer there. And so people will be commuting all different times of the day for different reasons, coming in only for one meeting, coming in for a full day. And the notion of being multimodal, I think, is really important, and not to put one person in a bucket or try to segment people into just single buckets. One day you might be a single occupant vehicle user, and the next day you might ride, public transit because you have a much relaxed time to get into the office, and then you might want to do some things, take care of them when you're on the transit, or you want to trip chain a certain way. And I think that's really going to be clear as we navigate the hybrid work environment, is really focusing on multimodalism and being prepared to have that meet people where they are and to have that conversation across all modes, including single occupant vehicle modes, but supporting it in a way that helps with parking, less circulation, parking once, as Marc does, at his campus. So I would really encourage that the hybrid, as the overhaul is needed, because I see Tom is mentioning, I certainly would love to be able to have a magic wand and make the world a better place. But as we're waiting for that overhaul to happen, I think technology and changing the paradigm to be very single occupant, single use to multimodal and choices can really help us navigate while we get, as we move towards the North Star of the overhaul.
Awesome. Okay. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up because I know we just want to save a couple minutes here to get to the fun stuff. Am I right, Shawn?
Yes, indeed. So thanks, Casey. Since it's the giving season, we wanted to thank you all for attending and give away some prizes. So Casey actually selected some names from attendees who are still on. So who's our first winner?
Okay. Our first winner is Bev Rager. And our second winner is Kevin Fusey from Commute Seattle.
Awesome. And that's for $50 virtual Amazon gift cards, I should have mentioned. So congrats.
Congratulations.
And our final giveaway honor is to honor ACT's members giving back to community. So many of you know our big giving program is the WeDriveU Stuff the Bus toy drive, benefiting underserved children that we do every year. So we kicked off our sixth drive this year, thanks to support from WeDriveU clients and ACT members, such as Genentech, Oyster Point Mobility, Tesla, Kite Pharma, TripShot, Commute.org, and several others. It's a smaller program than usual, but due to the pandemic, but we're happy we have a number of partners across the country participating. So again, thank you enough. And in that spirit, in addition to the large corporate donation WeDriveU is making to Stuff the Bus on behalf of our clients and team this year, we're adding 2 toy donations to our longstanding partner. So the San Francisco Fire Department toy program. So Casey, who are we giving these on behalf of?
Sure. Lisa Savstrom from the Georgia Institute of Technology and Catherine Windy from Move Minneapolis.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Congratulations to all. And want to thank you all for staying online, for joining us today. We couldn't have been happier with the turnout. And we also thank our panelists for a wonderful, wonderful presentation today. We thank you for staying on for our last webinar of the year. And we want to wish you all a very happy holidays. Thank you again.
Thank you.